Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Papo 2018 Quetzalcoatlus. This is one of the last of their 2018 lineup to become available. It came out at the end of the summer last year. I ended up picking mine up from Everything Dinosaur for about 20 bucks before shipping. You can also get this guy on Amazon. I think the last time I checked was around $30 if you had Prime. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to pick this guy up from Everything Dinosaur. They're one of my favorite places to order from. So at a quick glance, you can already tell this figure lives up to the high standards of Papo. It's packed full of detail and personality, which they are known for. So before we take a closer look at this guy, first things first, let's measure him. He is about 8 inches from the tip of his beak to his back foot. About 3.5 inches high at the crest, and about 6 inches from wingtip to wingtip. This is the largest pterosaur figure that Papo has made so far, as it should be. Quetzalcoatlus was a huge animal, 30 foot long plus wingspan, 9 feet tall to shoulder. It's one of the largest pterosaur species found, and they sculpted it in this beautiful walking stance. I love how Papo sculpts most of their figures. It always looks like a snapshot in that animal's life. You know, most pterosaur figures, when they're sculpted, they got the wingspan open, they're in mid-flight, which kind of makes it hard to display them. I mean, if I started drilling holes in the ceiling and, attaching fishing wire to have all my pterosaur models look like they were flying, my wife would kill me. But Papo went with a nice walking stance. Some of their other pterosaurs that they have done are like that, like the Dimorphodon and Tapejara. Collecte has a couple models like that, and Safari just came out with a new 2019 Pteranodon that's sculpted in a similar manner. I like my pterosaur models in the walking stance. They just look much better on a display shelf. Like I said earlier, the way Papo sculpts their figures, it looks like a snapshot was taken in the animal's life, like it was caught right in the middle of doing something. And that's something Papo has always been very good at. When you look at their figures, they look alive. There's plenty of great dinosaur companies out there that put out great figures, but when you look at Papo stuff, you just get a sense that this model looks just like a living, breathing animal. And the way this guy is sculpted, he looks like he just landed down, getting a drink of water, keeping an eye looking over his shoulder for any approaching predators. It's just a great pose that they chose for this. You can get a lot of interesting setup if you do a diorama. Scientific studies on these guys have the more Quetzalcoatlus being more terrestrial, walking around like a stork, picking up anything that can fit in its beak. Reptiles, smaller dinosaurs, plunder a nest. You can really see this figure doing that. Let's pull this guy a little closer and take a look at some of the finer details, starting with the head. Let's get a little focus in there. Got some nice black marking running down to the tip of the beak, some along the bottom of the beak. The crest is beautifully sculpted. Got some nice orange and yellow in there. The eye is yellow with a black pupil and a brown iris. Can't really see it too well in the video, but when you hold it up close, very well detailed eye. Got the nostril right there and some nice peach coloring going past the eye. Now this figure does have an articulated jaw. It's a little bit different to some other figures. Usually the bottom jaw has the articulation. On this model, the top of the head is the articulation. So when you open up the mouth, there's a lot of resistance when you open up the mouth of this figure. You can hear it creaking. That's about as far as I want to go with it. I don't want to snap the head off this guy. Doesn't really keep the mouth open too wide. Since we have the mouth open, let's take a look at that inner mouth detail. They did a great job with the inside of the mouth. Some nice washes in there, bringing out some of the finer detail. Got the tongue right there, and if you look all the way back, you actually can see the esophagus. And the top of the mouth, they actually have the nasal passages sculpted. The only other figure I've seen that on has been the Eofauna Giganotosaurus. which is a very cool touch. Now it has that very long, let's get back into focus here, and there we go. It has that very long Quetzalcoatlus neck. Like when these guys were standing up, take a look at T-Rex right in the eye, maybe even past the eye. I think they have some estimates that these guys could stand about 16 feet tall. Going down to the back, you have some nice sculpted vertebrae. All the proto feathers, or furry feathers, I don't know what the exact term is for these, are beautifully sculpted on here. You got some nice teal blue going down the back of the neck. Rest of the body is mostly a brown color. You know, I was looking at this figure. The paint scheme and the colors seem very, very similar to the Collecte feathered T-Rex. Let's get this guy into shot here. It's not as bright as the Collecte, but you can definitely see some similarities with the paint scheme on this. I think these two look absolutely great posed next to each other. And let's get him out of the way. Take a look at the rest of them. Like I said, Papo always does a great job sculpting the figures. They have a lot of defined muscle detail. The wing, lots of creases and textures. They even have the veins sculpted and painted in on this figure in purple. This is the only part right here I don't like on the figure. The black on the wing tips just looks a little sloppy. Kind of takes away from the overall appearance of the figure. I mean, it's not too bad, but when I'm looking at it, it does get a little distracting. The fingers are beautifully sculpted. Fingernails are done in gray with a black wash over them. The hind feet, even the bottom of the feet are sculpted well. Now the underside of the body does not have any feathers. It should, but it doesn't. But without the feathers, you can see the rib cage, the pectoral muscle. They just did an absolutely fantastic job sculpting this model. Now that we got the details out of the way, let's take out some of Papo's other pterosaurs and compare them to this guy. So first is their Tapajera, which is another one of their great models. It's in that nice walking pose. And this is their Dimorphodon. And their old Pteranodon. I believe this one has been repainted a couple times. I think this is the original release. I've had this figure for a long time now. I don't remember when I got it, but it's been in the box for a very long time. As you can see, this model looks great with these other pterosaur models. Now, these two have already been retired by Papo. The Tapajera came out, I think, just over 3 years ago, and the Dimorphodon, I don't even think it was out for a year, maybe a little bit longer than a year. So the recent trend with Papo is, it seems that they're retiring their flying reptiles rather quickly. So if you're waiting to pick this guy up, I wouldn't sleep on him. I'd get him as soon as you can, because you just never know when Papo's going to retire something. They've been retiring a lot of stuff lately. A couple that were surprised that they retired, like their Pachyrhinosaurus. So definitely highly, highly recommend this figure. This is one of my favorite Papo models to come out in a long time. It's just such a different figure for them. Absolutely love this thing, so I highly recommend you pick it up. And thanks for checking out the review, guys. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe.